Redding is a beautiful place. We have national parks in 3 different directions, 2 world-class lakes. This is a sportsman's paradise, but it's also full of wonderful people. We have business leaders, community leaders, faith-based leaders, all of them working towards a singular goal, and that's to make this a great place to live. I wanted to showcase these people, give their perception of the place that they call home. This is AllRedding. I am here with Scott Pewitt from Venture Properties, good buddy of mine. You and I met a couple of years ago at a Clemmer event, a personal mastery event. And I can tell you that really had a positive effect on my life. There was a lot of stuff I learned from that in a real weird experiential way. You know what I mean? Which is like, I had read several books, you know, I try to read like self-improvement, personal growth, things like that. And reading stuff and then interacting with people and doing it, it's a completely different experience.
Yep.
And I know that you're pretty involved with Clemmer. You've put on a lot of these personal masteries.
Yeah, it's something that we feel that we give back to our community because how it's impacted us. And probably my first part of the journey was being in a network marketing company where I just learned to do public speaking and things like that. And that was when I was right out of high school, and it was good for me. But about 10 years ago, I went to a Tony Robbins meeting, and that weekend really showed me how much of me I don't know. And so that was just the start of my journey to find out what personal mastery is.
Yeah, and so how did you come across Clemmer?
Actually, our kids, they went through Clemmer's personal mastery, and just some of the breakthroughs, some of the discoveries, the notices they've had. We didn't even know they had gone through a program like that, but what we saw on the back side of that was just stellar, and they ended up bringing it here to Redding just to again give back to our community, and so we ended up going through that weekend, and again it's the beginning of something. It's not you do it now I've mastered that I'm on to the next. It's you begin to see what you want to master, what you want to become. And what you want to shape. So,
yeah, one of the things I got from it that was a big takeaway, there's a lot of little sound bites, right? Like I was saying, like you read these books, and there's a lot of these mantras and these sound, you know, Tony Robbins empowering, and there's all this stuff, right? And that sounds great. You know, I am the master of my own destiny and stuff. But then you go through these exercises, and it really, what I took away from it, well, I took a lot of things away from it, but one of the big ones was just how much we put ourselves in a victim mindset.
That's right.
Where we feel powerless with all these, well, I can't do that because, or, you know, this is their, you know, we set these things up and we limit ourselves.
Yeah.
And we don't even, we're so comfortable and it's such a natural thing to do that we don't even realize we're doing it, that we're boxing ourselves out. And it was, I don't know if I got it from Clemmer, I got it from somewhere, but I always remember that analogy I was told once of, you know, your life is this car. And you can be driving, or you can be in the passenger seat, or you can be in the back seat. And just the words that you choose, the way that you talk to yourself versus I need, I should, I have to versus I want, I am. These things put you in the driver's seat. And that was one of the things I got from the Clemmer experience was don't let your mind make you a victim.
That's right.
Don't put yourself in the back seat and then be angry that the car is not going where you want.
That's right.
And they did it through not just words, but like, you know, it's an experience.
That's right. I think that your first enemy is yourself, obviously. The second is who you surround yourself with, which is your choice. And as you know, I just injured a leg 2 months ago playing pickleball, and everyone that hears the story says, "Oh yeah, you're in your 40s." And
me included.
They're trying to be supportive. They're trying to probably be a little cheeky, but the truth is, I get to choose whether that's true or untrue. And I just found out that it was because of a different injury I had that overworked. But everyone's been telling me, well, you're in your 40s. Welcome to your 40s. It's just a mindset whether we choose to adopt it or choose not to adopt it. But the words that are around us, we're not in control of them, but we are in control of whether we take it in and believe it a certain way.
That's so funny because before we started the camera, I was literally one of the guys that when you told me the thing, I was like, yeah, welcome to, you know.
Yep.
I don't think I said 40s because I'm a little bit older than you, but I was like, oh, that's just part of getting old. But you're right. It's so pervasive in our life. You don't even realize you're doing it.
It's usually non-intentional. But there's a statement that I did take with me, and that was how you do something is oftentimes how you do everything.
Oh, yeah.
And when I go back and I look where I've adopted mindsets, where I've adopted truths that I made true, they weren't really true, it becomes a part of my life. And so that was one of my big takeaways is where the areas that I have shaped my own world.
You know, it's right now, I think we see a lot of negative, the words, I'm trying to think like the words, but when you look at the streams, right, whether it's a TV station or whether it's Facebook, overwhelmingly, it's even positive stuff comes through, it gets bombarded with negatives. So somebody says something positive, like we had an episode, we were talking to Aaron Hayes, and just talking about good things, talking about these awesome opportunities for kids and these doors opening up. And I was blown away by some of the comments of how people are like, they threw negative on it.
Yes.
And it's hard, you know, I will say, I was going to say I didn't take it personal, but I did a little bit. But I realized, no, that's just a reflection of the sadness of how they're taking in negative energy. And then so wherever they look, even when they see like a beautiful flower, it's like, yeah, but it'll be dead in a month, you know? Right. And trying to catch that I don't know if it's always been this hard, but it feels like right now with the way our communication with social media and the news and stuff, it seems like it's harder than ever to try to train yourself to stay in that positive lane. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that you can take it one of three ways. You can join them in their mindset. You can stay neutral and disconnect, which may not be neutral, but the opposite is you can bring truth. One thing I found with people is no matter how negative they are, their internal, and I'm not an expert in this area, but somehow their internal psyche or their internal, the way they are made, when they hear truth, they come alive. And so if I can speak truth, I sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they respond to that because maybe they've been in that natural cycle where they're just speaking negativity out of hearing negativity. I find that truth oftentimes can wake somebody up.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things is that we live in a time, I keep coming back to this, but we live in a time that is pretty awesome. I mean, there's never been less death. People can get upset and they come firing at you, but it's like, hey, let's just look at numbers. There's never been a lower infant mortality rate. Yep. There's never been a lower moms giving birth mortality rate. Like from a pure percentage and volume, there's never been a better time to live than right now. You even told me something. We were drinking coffee. You're going to remember this. We were talking about my daughters, and you said, "Is there a time in human history that you would rather your daughters be born, like a time and a place than in America, 2021?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah, like pick a time in 6,000 years that you'd rather see your daughters live a full life, a healthy life. What time would you pick? And, you know, people reminisce on the past years, and there's always great things in the past. But this is a time when people are more free. Unfortunately, more choice brings possibly more problems. But it is a time where women are just more empowered than ever. Our kids can choose to be focused if they want to more than ever, and be respected more than ever. So it's an exciting time if you choose to see it that way.
And what a contrast, because if you look online, people are really battling like it's the apocalypse. You know, it's Armageddon. They're all very sure. And we're getting to this place of, it feels like a PTSD where we're all in hyper fight or flight mode and nonstop. And I saw a thing, I think I brought this up last time. I saw a thing at my chiropractor, Dr. Seaton's office, and it said, someone living now will experience more mental and emotional stress in 30 days than their grandparents experienced their entire life. Now, they would have had harder physical stress, right? They would have been out working, but they wouldn't have had this constant bombardment of, you know who's going to kill you. Yep. You know who wants you dead. You know what's going to destroy you. You know, it's like non-stop negative, right? And we've got to, I don't even know how to turn it all off. I'm trying to turn it all off, but it gets mixed in, like I said, with one of the things I've done is I try not to get on Facebook at all, but I work in digital marketing, so I got to spend a certain amount of time on Facebook.
That's right.
But even the positive stuff that comes through, what I've noticed is people jump on with negative. I'm like, how do you separate? You know, how do you do that in life?
Yep.
Because with all the stuff we're talking about, the empowerment, I think the second thing you said, first you focus on yourself, second thing is the people you surround yourself with. So it's like, how do you separate that out?
I think also there's times where you can just change your mindset. There's other times where you need a reset button. For me, I was chasing triathlons. It was kind of something that was exciting for me. And when COVID hit, they shut everything down. And that was one of my goals of driving forward and getting healthier and better physically. And I had a choice whether to sit and wait and watch or to do something different. And sure enough, I sat around for about 4 months and realized, what am I doing? So all I did is change my goals, and I chose backpacking. And one thing I found when we go back to the reset button is nature. There's something about nature, the way it was created, the way we're created, that you get into nature and all of that fog goes away. Man. I feel reset when I get in nature, whether it be for an hour or whether it be for 5 days. It was a discovery of, I was treating it as a goal, but what it taught me is it's something that I need on at least a monthly basis, because otherwise all the noise does start to change the way you think.
And physical activity. I mean, days that I get up and I work out versus the day that I don't, it's very, very different. Getting up and getting that blood flow and stuff like that. So physical activity. And we see a large percentage of our population is obese. And I bring that up because that's a real health concern.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And it's funny how we have these, how we don't address it. How we don't address, like, somehow we live in a time that's very mixed with personal freedoms along with like group.
Yep.
You know, we kind of see that battle going on right now, right? And we're like, why are we not addressing tobacco? Why are we not addressing, our food supply, that we would be this way, right? And it's like, well, that's personal freedoms. It's a weird cocktail of where 1 minute it's personal freedoms, the next minute it's like, because you have to think, I'm not in the healthcare.
Yeah.
I'd love to have somebody on here, but I'd say, hey, what is the financial impact of America's obesity on our healthcare system?
Yeah.
What is the financial impact of tobacco on our healthcare system? It's got to be gargantuan, right?
Yeah.
So why is that not a health concern? Why is that not something we should be talking about? You know what I mean? Why is it like, oh, now you're attacking a person? Just feels, I don't know. I'm kind of going off on a little tangent here, but I'm trying to think, like, where is that line of like personal freedom, personal responsibility, and like some type of responsibility to the group? You know what I mean?
The only answer I have for that is just the more I have. Well, let me back up. I was 256 pounds. At 6'2", you couldn't quite tell that I was obese, but I really was. And when you go on all the charts, and I was a little offended when they told me I was obese. But the last 4 years, just fully changing that. Every person I run into that knew me before and knows me after, they're hungry for that change, whether they choose it or not. But the only way I know how to face it is just be changing me, and it makes other people want to do the same thing, because in a debate, it never works.
No.
I'm just finding that whether you're in politics, whether you're in opinions on from COVID to vegan, non-vegan, carnivore, it's everyone's got an opinion. But something that works for you, it causes other people to think twice when they're seeing it working.
I like what Neil deGrasse Tyson said about debating. He says, I don't debate. I'll state my opinion, you state yours.
Yep.
But that debate is really just something, it's an argument. It's great for entertainment, for somebody to watch two people argue. But, he's like, you don't really, if you state your opinion and it doesn't change them, then that's it. That's the end of it. You state your opinion, I'll state mine, let's move on. And so that's one of the big things is how many of the debates we watch are really designed to truly change anyway. They're not. They're just entertainment. And logic never wins an emotional argument. Yep. Everything seems to be pretty emotional these days, I'm thinking back, taking a step back, one of the things I was thinking about was how personal responsibility, that was a big thing that came out of Clemmer, right? Was like, hey man, you're in charge of more of your life than you think.
That's right.
That 5% of what's Kim Jong-un doing and what's the governor of this state and what about this actress? What did she say? It's like, that's like maybe 5%. The truth is 95% of your life is just, what are you going to eat today?
Yeah.
How are you going to think? Are you going to catch your mindset when you start to think something negative about somebody? You're like, hey, I don't even need to think about that person.
That's right.
Right? And You went further with this personal mastery. You went all the way down.
Personal responsibility, I think, is the first and foremost. Honoring people where they're at and being able to hear where they're at. Sometimes you find out why they are where they're at. Listening oftentimes reveals a lot more than an opinion on what you think of people. And so one of the things I learned going through this process of personal mastery is listening and being with people. People have got them in a place, themselves in a place where it could be great difficulty, and sometimes they've got to find their way out, but there is nothing like having someone just be with you and listening. And it's one of my favorite exercises is going into a meeting and saying, okay, in this meeting, I'm going to see what percentage I can just be with them versus giving an opinion. Because in my world, I'm in commercial real estate, people are wanting your opinions all the time. In fact, I just now control the website adviceforcoffee.com.
Nice.
So it's a more a fun play because I love coffee, but people are always asking for advice, so you can easily get in a mode of always giving advice in every part of your life, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy in relationships, and so I have to practice listening and being with them wherever they're at, no matter how I agree or disagree. If I can be with them. Oftentimes they're finding their way out the same way they found their way in. They don't need my opinions to find their way out oftentimes, but they do need someone to be with them, and they find out that they're not alone.
Yeah, it sounds like when you were saying that, I was thinking like that's always the classic therapist thing. Like, so how did that make you feel? And then what did you want to do after that? You know what I mean? Like pulling it out. But you're right. The answer has to come from within for it to, you always hear all the time, you can't change people. You know, that person has to get sober for them. That person has to do this. They have to lose weight for them. And it's that idea of like, you can't motivate people, like not long term. You can give them the moments and lift them up, but at some point it has to come from within, or it's not going to have any long-standing effect.
Yeah, I give it that term that in an ancient text it once said, "Love never fails." Well, love is that connection of I'm with you. I can't change you, but I'm here with you wherever you're at, and I believe in you, possibly before you believe in yourself. That's one of my favorite things that I learned is that you can believe in people before they believe in themselves. You don't have to wait to see if they're going to believe in them before you believe in them. You don't have to wait to see if they're going to believe in themselves before you believe in them. That's something special, and somehow that faith that someone can make a difference, can change, it becomes contagious. And that's what I want for them if I see them in a place that I may agree or disagree. But
Simon Sinek has that thing about until people know why, or until people believe that you believe in them. You know, I've just completely destroyed his great quotes, but he's got a couple of great quotes about like, you have to have a why. And until people think that you believe in them, they're not really going to follow you type thing. I was thinking about, you hear it all the time. Last time Aaron Hayes was on here, we talked about it, and I hear it from coaches and stuff, is that when the kids realize that the coaches or the teachers really care, that's when the kid takes off.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? Yep. So it's not about them just talking down. It's about them like, hey, man, I really care about you. And then suddenly the kid opens up. And
that's right.
It sounds like it's the same way.
And we're the same way. We're just that same kid. Surrounding yourself with people that believe in you when you're struggling, believing is priceless.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I always love you and I, Advice for Coffee. We always meet for coffee, and I always love talk. I always feel better after we talk because of stuff like that. Because like anybody watching this doesn't know that this is really you. Yeah. This is really you. Your positivity is infectious, viral. No, just kidding. It's your positivity. Like I said, we came and I was like, oh, the world, this thing. You're like, so tell me when you'd rather have your daughters.
That's right.
Like, give me a time and place, and you're like, oh wow, this is pretty good. Then I know I struggle with be with.
Yeah.
My background is. But I pray about it. I've been praying about it every day, or meditating, whatever term you want to use. It's just like, I want to connect with people more.
Yeah.
I don't want to have that snap. Well, they did this because, like, you don't know where they are. You have no idea what they're going through. And it's just so easy to judge, but it just keeps cutting off potential relationships in our life.
Yeah.
And that's not good for us at all.
You know, one of the things I have to be careful, I'm very entrepreneurial, so I can believe I can do everything. But what I'm learning is that muscle is only there to enable other people to do something. Where I used to interpret it that I can do anything, and I want to do anything that I see that's value to me. And now as I'm starting to enable other people, let's say in my world, I'm in real estate and they want to get in sales, so I help them in insurance or I help them in financial services. If I can give them things that I've learned on the journey, enable them, it's just as satisfying as if I launched a business. But in the past, I've thought that was because I'm supposed to multitask and do everything. I didn't find happiness in that, but I find a lot of happiness in enabling other people, seeing their successes, celebrating them. It does something for you, and it surrounds you with the people you want to be around.
Very good. I struggle with that same thing. I can do anything, but I can't do everything.
Yep.
You know, and that's at 50 years old, I look back on my life, but it's been a great ride. But I'm like, man, why didn't I just stay in that lane for a little bit longer? Because I switched lanes, you know. It's kind of like the old guy that tells you about the Camaro he used to own when he was a kid. Why didn't he keep that Camaro? He's forgetting that he sold it and bought a truck, you know, the past. So you brought up real estate a couple times. I know you've helped my friends and my family, your commercial real estate.
Yep.
So we get a lot of questions about, because I'll go on Sabrina Schmidt's show.
That's right.
And just, I've been a big pro-Redding guy for a while.
Yeah.
For me, I looked at Redding and I felt like we have all these people that live south of us. That the cost of living, the daily commute, all of these things are magnitudes harsher than like, you know, people talk about traffic in Redding. It's like, dude, it took you 7 minutes to go from one side of the town to the other, right? You think about San Francisco or even worse. If you guys, anybody been in LA in the last few years, it is brutal. And you look at a house, a starter home down there, and it's like 780,000.
That's right.
And so I think even before COVID hit, there was this migration, right? But COVID kind of ramped it up because so many companies are like, you know, just work from home.
Yeah.
And like, well, if I can work from home, why am I paying $3,900 a month rent for a townhouse?
And sitting in a car for 2 hours each way.
Yeah. And so we're seeing growth, and I think we're going to see a lot more, but what are you seeing?
Well, I used to be from Montana, and so we saw that when the economy went great, you know, everyone wanted to get away, come up there. When the economy wasn't good, everyone would run to wherever's the easiest place to make money. Mm-hmm. So we see that migration happening in people. Now that I live in Northern California, it's the retirement area of California. We have everything you could imagine, from lakes to mountain biking, hiking, incredible mountains to discover, waterfalls. And so it's created that retirement community that not only maybe need to be close to medical, but then also people that are very active and want to get out. Well, I heard that Phoenix is now the 6th largest city in America, which blows my mind.
That blows my mind.
How can you do 117 degrees and a desert and be the 6th largest? Well,
wow.
It's telling me that Redding, you know, we have our heat, we have our great
we
winters, but that shouldn't hold us back if Phoenix can get there. So I'm a big proponent. My wife's a residential realtor. I'm a commercial realtor. And so we get to experience people from the perspective of retirement and then also business. And our community is growing in the business sector. It's people are moving businesses to a distance, or they're wanting to now open a new location. And now that maybe Sacramento, Chico are doing good, they want to come up closer to the mountains. And so we're seeing great growth. And COVID did help us in that area, in that population. The ones that didn't want to go to Idaho and Montana, they want to go to Redding.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends, Idaho, Montana in the summertime. I'm like, I grew up in Alaska, so I'm like, just one winter. Just give me one winter,
we'll see
and then
February.
Yeah, then we'll see. You know, Redding has, like, our airport is expanded.
That's right.
Alaska, Avelo, and United are all running direct flights along the West Coast and expanding. I mean, I think it's like Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Burbank are all direct flights. Yep. That's a big one.
Now they're talking Denver's coming, a flight to there. Yeah, Todd Jones is with the EDC, doing an incredible job expanding that side of it. And now people can not only work at a distance, but get back to the cities they need to when they need to. That helps a lot.
That's big for our growth. We're on I-5. You mentioned the medical. We have a huge medical community here.
Yeah.
We have 2 hospitals and a ton of ancillary medical opportunities around here. That's big. That's big.
That helps our retirement community, obviously our families also. But then I would say that our schools that are around here, we have a university, we have a community college, a school of ministry that are all 3 are thriving. So our residential income base is really strong. So even in the second worst economy that in the history of the United States, which was 2009-10, our rents actually went up. And so it just shows a stability that even in a bad economy, between the retirees and the kids going to school and the universities, colleges, that's given us a real good platform to build a great community.
Josh Barker put out a great market update, I think a little over a month ago I watched, and he was talking about how there are experts on both sides. There are experts that will tell you doom and gloom, hey, it's going down. There are experts, and they both make great points. There's a lot of contributing factors, like obviously interest rates are still really, really low.
Yeah.
So that's going to drive purchases. We have a real lack of inventory. That's so,
right.
When you talk about, like, everyone likes to talk about the market or real estate. You're like, are you talking about nationally? Are you talking about California?
That's
are you
right.
talking about Redding? Redding is a very specific set of things. Obviously, national things like interest rates. If interest rates double tomorrow, yeah, it's gonna suppress
Yep.
real estate. But I don't think they're gonna do that. But even so, we don't have inventory. That's, if you look, it fluctuates a little bit, but
Yeah.
we went through this summer, there was a real lack of inventory, and it's hard to replace that. Like, you just don't decide to build 60 homes.
Yeah, in our community, if we see 1,000 to 1,400 homes on the market, that gives every buyer like a choice of 3 to 4 homes. We're seeing anywhere from 390 to 500 homes on the market right now. So,
Which went up because it was much lower than that in the middle of the summer.
yeah, and so to us, what that communicates is, one, our construction is needing to build new homes, and then the second is that if we're going to see a little bit of a bubble in any type of interest rates going up, that we have a layer of need that's demanding, and that floats us through those type of ups and downs in real estate.
Yeah, I don't. I obviously don't know what interest rates are going to do. I listen to a few of the different lenders and subscribe to their stuff just to try to keep on top of it. Kind of almost doesn't matter to me because it's one of that 5% I can't control, interest rates, right? But I definitely look at inventory and the idea that I have felt that people are going to continue to move here for some time, not just retirees. I think we're seeing a lot of younger people.
That's right.
You brought up School of Ministry. They're bringing in, and Simpson, they bring in students. And then what you see is you start to see the family members. So some of the people, I've met several people that, like, why did you come to Redding? Like, because my kids are going to Simpson or they're going to Bethel, and they're like, I'm just going to live here for a while.
Yeah, I think spiritual community, no matter what faith anyone is, spiritual community is a factor that we see families always wanting to get close to. And it just so happens that we have a university and school of ministry, and that's one of the, I think, values of our city is we have a healthy spiritual community of many faiths. But that makes for a stronger community. Also, it brings in a lot of creatives. We're seeing in our town just a lot of creative people come. Sometimes they're not moving here for money. They're moving here just to have more time. And that is a creative type personality. And creatives can really bring a lot of culture and a lot of out-of-the-box ideas to a community. So that's been healthy for us. That's spurring the breweries, the coffee shops, and I call them coffee shops. Nowadays, they're gourmet micro brews almost of coffee. But these are the things that are causing people to enjoy our city because they're very unique niches in our community. So that's what I mean by creatives.
No, I see it too. It's even through this COVID, which is really, it's suppressed a lot. We've seen a bunch of things rise up.
Yep.
So you can imagine that maybe when we're past all of this, that if those same people are still flocking here, we're going to see some. That's why I said I'm very bullish on Redding. I have been, and I don't get caught up with. I was just talking to somebody the other day, and they said, "Oh, the market slowed down a little bit." And it's like you're talking about. it was the hottest market ever. You know what I mean? So it's instead of 100 degrees, it's 97 degrees, and you're like, oh, it's really cool. It's like, no, that's still hot, man. We're still like moving forward very fast.
Yeah.
So what about commercial though? Because I don't really pay any attention to that.
And let me maybe set the tone in that. From my view, my opinion on real estate is you're calculating for the future problems or calculating for the bubbles. That's got to be a part of your conversation and your thinking, because real estate goes up and it goes down, and just like the stock market, anybody that's looking at the stock market and only trying to find things that goes up is already in a problem.
Yeah.
Because things go up and down. And so in our commercial real estate, in our residential, I tell people if you're selling at the high of the market, you're most likely going to have to buy at the high of the market.
Yeah,
and
1031.
That's right. And so in the commercial world, whether it's 1031 exchanges or what we're looking for is what is stable in tough markets. So again, we're reaching out to what we know will be and starting to look into, okay, residential income does well there. We watch office do well in certain segments. In our smaller type offices versus our luxurious offices don't do well in a bad economy. So if an investor's looking at it from that perspective, then we're already measuring what it's going to look like down the road. And that's how we hopefully mitigate losses.
Through the COVID, there's been this like renter, I don't know what the term is, but I've heard people not having to pay rent. There's some type of forgiveness stuff. Has that stopped, or have they put a line on that?
It's been a great conversation. I'm reaching out to our property managers all the time, getting their opinion, because they're right on the front lines of that. And there's definitely different, not interpretations, but different maybe laws for in the larger cities and things. But in our city, we've actually seen a lot of success in rents being paid. I've sold about 150 doors. We call them doors, whether that's from duplex to apartments, just this year, and I bet you less than 1% didn't pay their rent.
Oh, wow, that's really good.
So,
I mean, what's the normal rate of people not paying their rent?
I don't have the exact, but I'm hearing stories in the larger cities of just large amounts, and so I think it shows that even in our low income, that they still got their jobs, they still have a value for jobs. And even though there's a lot of people needing to hire, which is definitely the case, people in the lower income paying their rents and in the middle and high income, it's showing that we have a healthy community as far as the workforce.
Across the board, my clients will say, I run job postings for them. It's just another type of ad, right? Yeah. And overwhelmingly, almost everybody I know is looking for people to come work.
Yeah.
So we're definitely, I don't know what our unemployment rate is. And I don't even pay attention like, oh, well, they're going to give another set of stay-at-home money, which is definitely fueling like people not working. And I kind of get it. If you're a young person, you're like, let me get this straight. I can sit at home and get $600, or I can go work and get $700. You know what I mean? It's not good for their soul to sit at home and collect money. That's not good. But come on, man. You think about when you're young. That's right. Know what I mean? You're no Warren Buffett. You're already struggling with financial. You know what I mean? Now you've got a moral choice, and the government's like, no, stay at home. Here's some money. It's like, we gotta.
This is a perfect example of stories being spun, because it is absolutely true. That is what is going on as far as people saying, why should I work? But if they hear that people believe in them and want to help them climb whatever their ladder is of success, and they believe in what they want to do, suddenly you have a motivated workforce. And that's where we have to spin the story and start telling them, hey, what would you, if you 5 years from now, where do you want to be?
Yeah.
And when they can start answering that question, they don't want to stay at home. But when all they're hearing is the inundated, why should I work? Then they end up staying at home. So we have to motivate our own community, unfortunately, but it is for the best.
It's not just our community. Jordan Peterson has a thing called self-authoring. Yeah. And it costs like 20 some odd bucks, but it's wonderful. I went through it, and it's a series of writing. They have you do these writings where you just map out, where do you want to see yourself? Right? And start like piecing it together, which, saying something, thinking something is one thing, then saying it, and then like having to write it starts to bring it, like it makes it more and more real. Yep. And so just sitting down like, okay, I get it. Yeah. $600 to stay at home, $700 to work. But wait a second, where do you want to be in 5 years? You know, when I was growing up, one of those running cliche
Yep.
jokes was start in the mailroom, right? Like you start
Yep.
at the bottom of the
Yep.
ladder. You know, he started in the mailroom. She was in the mailroom, and now she's the executive vice president. That was like a thing that was still, even though it was kind of a cliche, almost like what we'd call a meme today. I felt like it resonated with me.
Yeah.
Where you're going to start at the bottom, but so what? You know what I mean? You're 22 years old.
Yep.
Do you think they were going to hire you as the CEO? And I think we need to push that more. We need to give those younger people like, hey, look, map out your trajectory. Don't
That's
think
right.
you tell them 1 minute, live in the now,
Yep.
right? But at the same time, like, okay, I get it. But at the same time, is $600 handout a week or a month or whatever it is that going to get you anywhere?
Yep.
Or is that going to be generational welfare?
One of my favorite words I adopted about 3 years ago is pivoting. And so between my wife and I, we have 7 kids. So
Nice.
I have 4.
Brady
she
bunch.
has 3. Yeah, they're all out of the home now. But
Oh, nice.
obviously, we've had many conversations about their future because of the age that they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And the word pivoting has been, we'll say, freeing, because it's like you can aim for a goal and it's okay to pivot. But if you don't set the goal, then you don't ever get forward. And so oftentimes, whether you're 20 or 40, the fear is if I pick this goal, I may be saying no to other goals. And it's like, no, pick this goal and hit it with incredible accuracy. And as you're going there, you may pivot to something else, and that's okay. And somehow that's, at least in my own kids and some of the people I like to coach, it's given them the freedom to feel like they're not going to be stuck, whatever they choose. Because in the moment, it feels like they're not sure they want to do this or they want to do this. It's like, just pick one. And now that you've got momentum, you can pivot, you can change. It's okay. But having that goal, whether it be a job, whether it be an entrepreneurial idea, or whether it be just growth, personal growth, as long as you're moving forward, then change can happen with just a decision.
You know, a couple of things popped in my head when you were saying that. One was Tony Robbins says, you know, we vastly underestimate what we can do in 3 years and vastly overestimate what we can do in a year.
That's good.
And so when we've set these 1 year goals and we don't quite it, because you know they're not reasonable.
Yeah.
And then we feel defeated versus trying to map out, like, give yourself a little bit longer. So I mean, a 20-year goal, that's a lot of foresight. That's
right.
a tad bit much. But I would think like 3 years. Maybe in a 5-year plan, and then try to break it down. Like, okay, well, at 5 years, then what do I need in a year?
That's right.
Making it real, making it digestible.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because when you are in the mailroom, the idea that you're going to own the company. I mean, those people that have that vision, they're awesome, and we celebrate them.
Yep.
But that's not the norm.
Yep.
And so breaking it down, like, hey, man, a year in the mailroom, and then 3 year. You know what I mean? The other thing I was thinking about was, you know, Steve Jobs was notorious for wearing the same outfit every day.
That's right.
And then I remember hearing about President Obama, where he had a set of clothes, right? So before everybody freaks out and says, I hate Steve Jobs and President Obama, remember, there's another piece of story under this where I'm going somewhere. So just calm down,
That's
relax,
right.
sit
That's
back
right.
down, put the remote down. What they said was there's so many choices you're bombarded with. And you have a limit on how many your brain can truly handle. Like there's some glucose limit where you're just like, you get frazzled. You think about how we're all frazzled after lunch, right? So one of the things they wanted to take off the plate was clothes. They're like, look, I don't want to look at a closet and start my day with, I wish I were. I picked this outfit. Why? Because just move forward. I have much bigger things to focus on. So, you know, they kind of made fun of him because he had the exact same clothes. And then Obama, he had like, and there was other people that said the same thing. Like, oh yeah, I don't pick my clothes. I don't do that. That's ready for me. I don't sit there and go through it because I need to move on to big decisions. And my brain's only going to handle X amount today. So just trying to get rid of some of that stuff. And that kind of goes back to us being bombarded with information, because you're talking about like focusing on something and going, oh, but I won't be able to focus on these other things. Yeah, you'll be able to pivot. That idea of kind of like bringing in that focus and going like, we can change later, but right now, let's focus on this. Let's put the blinders on. I know I've always struggled with that my whole life.
I know your haters are going to just not change their clothes, and then they're going to stink and wondering why your advice didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. I have not changed clothes in 8 days. Joey is
'Cause
horrible.
Joey-
I knew when he said Obama that it was bad. Okay. You know what I mean? So let's change it. It was actually President Bush
That's
that
right.
said it.
That's right.
Now I've just pissed off the other half. Now I've got everybody angry at me equally. Yeah. So some of those things that you were talking about was like being able to trim away stuff.
That's right.
And that's kind of what focus is.
Yeah, I think that personal mastery, the other side of it has been for me to starting to find out where I come alive. And that could be how I dress for some people. That could be, hey, I need to get that side of it out because I got things to focus on. But there's things that people come alive when they're doing something. It could be podcasting, But it's important to be able to finally say no to things so you can say yes to something. And when people ask me, why should I go through personal mastery? It's because if you haven't found out what makes you come alive, then you need to step out of your environment for a weekend and really just see clearly for a change. Get all the noise, removed so you can see what is it that makes me come alive and what should I be doing. And if I can remove all the busyness that I created out of entrepreneurial opportunity and start seeing what I really love, then money is no longer the issue. It just comes naturally because you're doing something almost supernatural. You're putting out an effort that's creating a greater result because you're passionate about it, instead of doing all these little good ideas that end up creating just a busy you.
Well, I remember in personal mastery where they said intentions plus mechanism equals result.
That's right.
And we whittled it down to it's 100% intention, because you're like, it doesn't matter what you say you want, you're going to find hundreds of different people that did it. That's completely right. Like, I want to be a millionaire, or I want to lose weight, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. And you can find examples. So the mechanism doesn't matter.
That's right.
How you do it doesn't matter. What matters is if you have true intentions, the mechanism will appear. You'll find, if you really want to lose weight, you'll find the right diet for you and the right exercise. If you really want to, like, I want to be a millionaire, it doesn't matter if you're talking about, selling cars or being an artist or anything. I tell my kids all the time, focus on what you want to do, because the top 1%, don't think about money. Yeah. The top 1% of anything is wealthy.
That's right.
The top 1% of trash guys owns a bunch of trash yards and is sitting in a palace right now being fed grapes. So the mechanism doesn't matter. Focus on your intentions and align yourself, like you said. Passion's an awesome fuel.
So you'll know that your subliminal mind is running when I ask you if you want to go to personal mastery. The first question you ask me is, well, how much is it?
Yep.
Well, what does that matter? If it makes you $10,000, is it worth $9,000?
Yes.
Or is it cost $9,000? People ask me all the time, well, how much time is it? Or how much does it cost? Those two things. And it immediately tells me that their time and their money is where their weakness is. So they may have all the money in the world, but they're still thinking through that lens of, I've got to protect my money. Instead of the ones that I know that are on the right track are the ones that I'll tell them the results that happen and I'm in. They don't care how much money it is because they know those results is what they want.
Yeah.
So the question is, do you want to save money or do you want results? Now, the personal mastery may be free or it may be $1,000. It doesn't matter. The question is, what results is coming from it? And results is what we're all looking for. But what messes us up is we think the only mechanism is the cash in our pocket. And so my son, he wanted to go to, it was actually Clemmer Youth Camp. It's every summer. They do phenomenal jobs with kids. And he was 15, and I told him it was going to be a certain amount of money. And immediately, without me coaching him, immediately he went to, what are the ways that I can produce that? And that told me he had been learning something from me that I don't remember teaching him, which is there are ways to make money. And so it doesn't matter how much is in his account, didn't matter how much is in his pocket. He wanted those results that he heard. So he was ready to produce that so that gets him over the hurdle. That's what we all need. If immediately when I bring up personal mastery, what came in your mind is, well, how much is it? How much time is it? You know that's the areas of lenses you're looking in, which is, am I fear of money, or is it the loss of money, or is it the amount of time because I just got myself so busy I barely have time? And you and I have been in Business Network International, which is BNI, and what is amazing to me is the people that aren't in that group say it's because they don't have time. And the people that I see succeed the most have probably the least amount of time of any of us. but they're there out of relationships. So again, it goes back to this whole thing of scarcity of time, scarcity of money. What is keeping me from making decisions that could literally launch me to where I want to be? And I throw up the wall of money or time to keep me from that experience.
One of the other things that we learned from Clemmer was that your operating system is kind of written in those first 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, it's when you're your hardware is your genetics. You're gonna be 6'2", somebody's gonna be 5'8", right?
Yep.
You're not changing the hardware. The software though is those first 8 years. And we see all these programs and you really kind of get an idea of what was taught to you at a very young age.
Yep.
And I know that fear has been a fuel source. Before I went to Clemmer, I actually saw Mike Tyson's, he does like a one-man show. And he talked about that fear was always his fuel source. He said, Evander Holyfield is everything I pretended to be.
Wow.
Because even when I was knocking guys' heads off, it was fear that fueled me. And it really resonated with me because I was like, me too. That's like, it wasn't passion that was driving me down these avenues. And even though I was having success in them, it was a fear of something else.
That's right.
And that's a very exhaustive fuel source. It keeps you kind of in a fight or flight. That's not meant to be a long-term fuel source. It's meant to be like short bursts of here comes a wolf, get out of the way. But I think a lot of us live in that space of like, it's something that starts and then it's hard to even, when you said my ankle and I said, oh, welcome to your foot. Like it's a part of us.
So to give context, if you got out of bed this morning, you got up on the same side, you went through the same routine, you put a toothbrush in the same hand, you may have not brushed your teeth, whatever is your cycle that you go through, it's all subliminal. So what you're referring to is in the first 8 years, oftentimes many of our automatics are built in the first 8 years that you're alive. And so that's the filter in which you see the world. That's the filter that you make decisions. That may be the filter that you see food, what food you like, you dislike, all got programmed in that first 8 years. And so those are subliminal decisions you're making without consciously making it. I probably drove here and I don't remember any of the turns.
Yeah.
I just got here because it's just what I always do. Where else, if you remember the statement I made earlier, how you do something is oftentimes how you do everything. What is it? How was it that I drove here? Did I speed here? Did I not turn on my blinker? Those were all subliminal things that I learned at a younger age. That's how it's going with our success, our money, our finances, our children, our family. Any of these areas, we have these subliminal, probably 80 to 90% of our decisions being made is through those subliminal filters. And so the only way to change that is to be able to step back and look and see. You said it when I'm in that personal mastery training, I'm interacting and I get to the end of maybe a module and I get to look back and go, how did I show up? Well, why did I make that decision? Then they ask the question, where else in your life is that decision being made? Where else is it affecting you? Once you find that out, you realize, oh my gosh, most of what my checkbook, my kids, the way they respond to me, my spouse, all of that is about 80% of it is just subliminal decisions I'm making all the time that's creating my experience.
I think about like a Tom Brady. I always use Tom Brady because, I mean, the guy, phenomenal success, right?
Yeah.
And what was like the last quarterback or one of the last quarterbacks drafted, I mean, he was way down there. And just, he seems to, I don't know the guy, but he seems to have this incredible, positive, forward mentality, right? Like he doesn't, the one quarterback's got the chip on his shoulder. I saw a thing this year, he said, hey, there was another team that he wanted to go to and he wouldn't say who it was, but they told him, sorry, you're too old or whatever. And he's like, that was motivation. So even he feels that like negative and I'm going to harness it. But like, why does Tom Brady win all the time? He's not, do you know what I mean? There were other quarterbacks that came out that were physically much stronger, much more powerful, but there's something about when you hear him talk, when you see him. I know he surrounds himself with a lot of coaches. He's famous for his diet, his workouts. So his daily habits are on point.
And even he has filters because he didn't become a Dallas Cowboy.
Ha ha. He hasn't retired yet.
That's right.
But just I think about like, okay, well, if Tom Brady can do it, not like I'm gonna win some Super Bowls, but like he shows up. What did he do in his life to show up the way he showed up that I can do in my life at my scale? You know what I mean? It's like,
so let me just, when you said Tom Brady, everyone listening had an immediate thought, a subliminal thought that they didn't consciously make. Mm-hmm. And it was either a positive or a negative. Some people thought greatest football player in the history. Other people thought, he's a rich whatever. Some people thought, I hate that team. All these different opinions. But when someone wants to, whatever, if you can capture that subliminal thought you just had, it'll tell you what kind of filters you have when you hear success.
Yeah.
So I'm an avid Dallas Cowboy fan. So
Me too.
The moment you bring it up, I want to bring up his negatives, but he's one of the greatest players in the world.
Yeah.
And but that's how you start taking notice of these, what we would call sunglasses that I look through, that cast a vision onto success that I see. And now where is that affecting me in other areas where I throw up a roadblock and I can't learn from what he's done because I've immediately got opinions about him.
Fair enough. That happens. I think about, like, when I think about Tom Brady, I go to a positive place. Wasn't a Patriots fan.
Yep.
Just a fan of success,
Yep.
right? A fan of people winning. Like when I see a gold medal, I was thinking about some of the people that I have disagreed with and how when I hear them, I put that lens on. And it's kind of like that idea of like the First Amendment, right?
Yeah.
Like freedom of speech. Everybody, hey, freedom of speech. And then as soon as somebody says something you don't like, you're like, but not that speech.
That's right.
Like I'm all for people being able to say everything I agree with.
Yep.
But that person just said something I didn't agree with. And so I want them shut down. I want them canceled. That seems to be a very prevalent idea. But I just caught myself thinking the same thing. There's people, we were having a conversation before this started with my producer, and a name was mentioned, and I immediately had a negative reaction.
Yep.
And start thinking, like, why would you have any other reaction than you had when it was Tom Brady?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I see an opportunity for growth. I don't know if it's going to, I don't know. I almost just said I was 50, so it might not count, right? Just compounded it.
So that goes back to the be with. If I can practice my mind, we'll call it being neutral for a moment. Whatever that means is different to every person. But let's say that I practice coming back to neutral and then be with as somebody is sharing information with me. Every time I see myself jump to conclusions, I can let that be the red flag that, okay, I'm not being with. And it's that practice that gets me into a place where suddenly I'm having a conversation with people that in the past I would have thrown in roadblocks, but now I can actually set into that neutral space and just listen and hear their story, their perception of Tom Brady, their perception of politics. Politics gets a bad rap because there's a lot of personal debate that goes on instead of just, again, taking that posture of hearing why they're believing from that position.
Politics is a tough one for me. It's a tough one for everybody. To me, there's several factors that make it tough. One of them is that it's binary. So which party are you? So I need to know. Yep. So that, like everything in life can be put into two camps. That's no. The other thing is that our elected officials, again, quoting Jillian Dillon, they're not our leaders. They're our elected officials, is that they set the tone of the way that they talk to each other. Right. And so we're kind of almost like children where we watch our parents disrespect each other. So then we disrespect each other. And so that combination of which side are you on?
Yep.
And, the way that they interact, it makes it to where we interact that way. But I've said I probably voted, I don't know where I voted Republican. I voted Democrat. I'm former military. We lean towards usually Republican, but not always. But I've tried to focus on the individuals. Yeah. Right. And it seems like it's gotten harder and harder to do. Right. It seems like the politics has permeated. It's almost like politics has become entertainment. Right. Yep. Like we're not really coming together in Redding and saying there's a couple of camps right now that are fighting in Redding. Yep. Right. And I watch them and I think how much of what they're doing is this knee-jerk reaction to each other? Like, if couldn't both of them? Because when I've listened and read what both of them have said, and I think both of them would like to see this a better place. Do you know what I mean? Like underneath it,
right.
I think like both of them would like their children to do well.
Yeah.
Both of them would like clean air. Both of them like we could stack all these things, but they're so caught up in, well, you're blue, you're red, you're this, you're that. So we have to be natural enemies. And I'm like, are either one of you getting anything done? Are either one of you making this a better place? I would love to have both of them. You know, I would love to probably turn into a fist fight, but I would love to like, tell me how what you're doing is truly making this better. Tell me how you're lifting people up. You know what I mean? Versus, well, by me putting that person down, I've made it better. Really?
Yeah.
When is that? You know what I mean? I'd like to see a change.
Well, we have a lot of opinions flying, and I bet you just the ones that are listening right now, if you remember the last time you sat down with one of your elected officials and had a conversation, it's probably been a long time, the majority. And anytime we're feeling frustrated, we've got to step into that world and feel it, and instead of just keeping an opinion on it. And I actually ran into one of our elected officials yesterday, and he was having a conversation right next to me in a public place. And he's one of the controversial ones right now. And I was so proud of the conversation I was overhearing. Like there was so much invested into the business he was talking to that it made me realize that I've really got to get closer and find out what they're experiencing, why they're believing what they're believing, and just in order to have more respect for people, because I can easily be jaded by the things that I'm hearing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And when Aaron was on here, we were talking about, like, if you sit down, you're going to find like 90% of the stuff, they're going to agree on 90%, but they're fixated on the 10%. That's right. Yep. You know, and the all these cliches, they're cliches for a reason, but whatever you put your focus on expands. So if you stare at the 10%, that becomes everything. You buy, like, yeah, I don't care that we agree 90%. I want to focus on this 10%. And so now 10% becomes 100%. Yep. Because that's the only thing that you're focusing on. When we were talking, I've gotten several comments where people are just like, well, what about homeless? You know, and it's like, well, nobody's saying that Redding's perfect, but there's 110,000. If you did, you know, to me, Redding is all the outlying areas, because they come into Redding to shop, they come into Redding to use the hospital. So it's really, you know, like from Shasta Lake to Cottonwood, Palisade, all that. You've got over 110,000 people. Yeah. And we do have a homeless issue. I don't know a major city that doesn't. Yeah. If that's your focus, if when you think of Redding, you think you have a list of 6 things that are negative. Yeah. You know, somebody's like, oh, housing prices are really valuable. Well, that's great if you own a house. You could say, like, your asset has appreciated dramatically. You know, well, there's fires going on. My brother lives in Miami. When was the last time we boarded up a Redding house because a hurricane is coming in? They do that almost every year. Right. And I'm just like, why are you still there? They're like, we got to board everything up. It's going to shut down for 4 days. I'm like, you know, you can move. So where do you put your mind? Where do you put your focus? Yep. Because to me, what I see is a great little community. I don't know what we're missing. Maybe some cultural things, maybe like, you know, a museum or some more art. But we've got, to me, I see all the positives. Yeah. I will say, I'll give you my negative. It is hot. I watch movies, usually like places like England, and I'm like, oh man, I think I was supposed to live there. Like everything's green and lush, and they're all wearing like 3 layers with, you know, houndstooth tweed, and I'm like, that looks great. And if I was there, I'd be like, I need to get hot. But,
and then in February they all come here.
Yeah, snowbirds. But Redding's got a lot of positive things going on, and I think it starts with, we've got nature. Yep. You talked about that. I know the lake's low now, but I remember when I've seen the lake go low a few times, right? And it comes back. We've got, you said, waterfalls. We just hiked Whiskeytown Falls the other day. Beautiful. Falls. Yeah. Bernie Falls, gorgeous.
The beauty is you can be hot and you can go in 3 directions in 30 minutes and change by 15 to 20 degrees. Yeah. And so the ability to just refresh. Probably my favorite thing about Redding is the people. Yeah. And I don't mean that just in a positivity. Like, there are people being very intentional. You look at Startup Redding, you look at the EDC, you look at the Chamber of Commerce, and And people can have polar opinions about any of those, but one thing that is true is there is some amazing people giving a lot of their time to see something get a little bit better. And when you got a community of people that are being intentional, you can about change anything. Like we look, some of our favorites are Bend, Oregon and Whitefish, Montana, and some of these places. And I look back, and 20 years ago, they were making changes. And so the changes that are going on right now are going to look so great, 20 years from now. And so the people of a town is what I think they're the fabric. So
absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
And the podcasting. Look at this.
Thank you, sir. One of the things that I think if you're watching this and you do have that lens of negativity, is you're not hurting. If you think I'm an idiot, you might be right. But if you think I'm an idiot, you haven't hurt me. I don't
Yeah.
Oh, do you feel that? Oh, someone right now is talking about me, thinks I'm an idiot. You're hurting yourself, right? You're drinking a poison, okay? So if instead you can say, okay, I've got this list of negative. Let me push that to the side. I've got that list covered. What are some positive things about where I live? What are some positive things about my life? Where I'm going with this is I have a gratitude journal. So every morning I try to write down some positive things. And, when you first start, it's thank you for my health, thank you for my family. It's the big stuff, right? Because you want to be but you have to shift that to little things like, man, this is really good coffee. I'm glad I can go to the bathroom. That sounds funny in your 20s, but when you get older, you're grateful for that one. Just little things of why? Because gratitude and being angry, gratitude and being sad, gratitude and being offended, they can't coexist.
Yeah.
So if you want to live your life offended, everybody pissed you off, everybody done you wrong, if you want to live your life angry all the time, you want to live your life sad all the time, you're effectively choosing to drink poison every day.
That's right.
Every day you're choosing what's your poison today? Is it arsenic, or would you want some anthrax? It's I want sadness. I want true bleak sadness. I want to get angry, right? You're hurting yourself. You're not hurting any of these people. If you hate the governor, it's not going to affect his haircut at all. He's still moving forward, right? So instead, if you go, I'm going to sit down and think about what should I be grateful for today? Maybe the fact that you have life. Right after Aaron Hayes' interview, I had a pivot moment in my life. I contracted COVID. I got very, very sick to the point I had to go to the hospital. I got pneumonia, and it kicked my butt.
Yeah.
And it was people asked me, how do you feel? And I was like, it was a blessing from God. It was in that dark moment where I was very, very sick, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat.
Yeah.
That was the experience I had. There were several of us that got it. Other people were like, it was a cold. I don't know. I've had worse. And I was like, why me? Whatever, bad genes. Okay. But in that moment, I thought, man, I really want to strip away a lot of the stuff that's negative in my life, a lot of the stuff that is holding me back. And I felt like it was, it's your mindset, like you said, and you've been hanging out with some people that are kind of holding you back. And I'm not digging on those people, but if you want to go hike a mountain, you better surround yourself with people that want to go hike a mountain.
That's right.
Right? Not people that want to go, hang out at the bar. You're not going to serve these two masters.
Of people.
Yeah. And so that experience, right? That super flu that I got, was a blessing.
Yeah.
And it was an opportunity for me to pivot.
That's right.
Right? So using your words.
Yep.
And I would hope that people wouldn't have to go through something like that to get that aha moment.
Yeah.
It would be nice if you're just sitting there going, you know what, I think I'm just going to change. I think I'm just, go to a Tony Robbins, find out about Clemmer personal mastery. Unfortunately, it usually does take kind of a down, for us to bounce back. But I would say you have the ability to change your life right now.
Yeah.
Right now, you can choose to drink a cocktail of what am I grateful for? How am I going to help somebody else? That's another big one.
Yep.
Instead of it just being about you, what are you going to do today for somebody else?
Yep.
Right? Because I don't care where you are in your life. I got to be careful because I'm an emotional person. I got a couple of people that are going through some really tough times right now.
Sure.
Really tough times. Babies in hospital, tough time, right?
Yeah.
And so they would love to trade places with you. If you can get up and you can walk, there are a ton of people that would love to trade places with you. So focus on positive. Focus. And how do you do that? Start with gratitude.
So gratitude is my number one change I had to make. So I don't want to cover that over, but I want to add the second thing that for me was the biggest change, and that is, I think in our American society, it's pop pills, keep from having a headache, keep from having whatever problem. And since I've gone from this being overweight to being athletic, one thing I've learned is that athletes actually tear muscles. They actually have things go wrong, and they learn to repair themselves. And so, people are trying to avoid having COVID, which obviously none of us wish that on anybody. But
No.
the point is that we were made to heal up. And so when my calf tore, I just found out here this week, my coach said, "You have a weak ankle." I don't have weak ankles. They've been doing great. And so he gave me some physical therapy to work on, and I start moving my ankles, and my right one is great and my left one is exhausted. Well, what I just learned I'll call me an athlete, which is stretching it. It's a very low watermark, but what I just learned is I have a weak part in my body. My calf muscle tore because it overcompensated for my ankle. All that's doing is teaching me, one, I can heal up my calf muscle. Second, I need to work on my ankle. So instead of trying to avoid pain and avoid, things that are coming against us, use it to help yourself learn that you can rebuild. That could be finances. You could be, whoever's listening could be in the worst financial state right now. You were made to repair. You're made to build. And so there are weaknesses going on around you that put you in that state. And most likely subliminal is how you got there. Sometimes it's full choice. But the point is you were made to rebuild. And so to be able to go, okay, here's where I've identified, even though I got a torn calf muscle, I've got a weak ankle. I need to work on that thing so that my calves only have to do what they were made to do. I can take that into finances. When I'm in real estate and I'm working with investors, I have guys that have lost everything in the 2009, 10, 11 time period. And now we've totally rebuilt them because they are realizing that even in that worst time, our whole economy is made in America is made to rebuild. You can rebuild yourself. And so my goal is to change the mindset of whoever I'm experiencing, whether it be my kids are not doing well, my spouses and I are not doing well, or my finances aren't doing well. You have weak points. You have your weak ankle. We'll use that analogy. And okay, how do I rebuild that muscle? And whatever state you're in, that is not the state you're going to be the rest of your life. But you've got to identify what's creating the problem. Because again, I'll go back to that statement, not being redundant, but how you do something is oftentimes how you do everything. How can I change that one thing? And when I do, it could absolutely change everything just by changing the one thing.
And in there is this idea of personal responsibility and how powerful it is.
Yeah.
That you didn't like, I got bad genetics, it's my grandfather. Like you going, look, I've got to strengthen my ankle. It seems small, right? And what does that have to do with finance? And what does that have to do with this? And what does that have to do with that? It's like, that's about that, taking that driver's seat.
That's
getting
right.
in and saying, look, I'm in charge of my life. I can't control genetics. Okay. I'm not 7'2" with a 40-inch vert. So I'm not going in the NBA. I don't have a 180 IQ. So I'm not going to go design something, with Elon Musk. That's fixating on the things you don't have. You take what you have and realize like, look, you can succeed whatever you have. You can succeed. That's where that mechanism, it's like, yeah, but I can't own that. You can find a success story wherever. You can find a success story. Every athlete, Muggsy Bogues, 5'3" in the NBA. Okay. You can find billionaires that started with nothing. There was this one guy, I'm trying to remember his name, Omar Ilatar. I met him and he has this YouTube channel where he just brings on people that are like, I was broke and now I'm worth 250 million. That's his thing. He goes and finds, so they tell this story of like, none of them started off with, well, my dad gave me 200 million and then I turned it into 260 million.
That's right.
So he's got all these stories of these people that, it's financial success, but it can play out however you want. But it starts with you going, hey, look, I have to take responsibility of my life.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if I take responsibility, I have power.
Yeah.
And if I have personal power, I have personal freedom. So another big thing is, well, then you got to cut off a lot of these channels. Do you really need to know what Kim Jong-un said to President Xi? Do you really need to know what's going on with the governor of New York when you live in Redding, California? You know what I mean? Like, does this stuff really matter? It's hard because it's addictive.
It is.
It's like little bits of dope and crack cocaine. I wouldn't know because I've never had crack cocaine, but I assume little bits of crack cocaine that we get addicted to.
Yeah.
And it can be kind of tough to turn that off. But if you turn that off and focus on yourself, you'll be a lot happier.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see success. So wherever you are in life, if your health isn't that great, you know, well, you don't understand. I have this or I have that. I got that. But you focusing on the hurdle that you have in your life is not going to make the hurdle smaller. Right. At no point are you like, hey, I've got a slow metabolism. I've got a thyroid issue. Find out where you are so that you can put all your energy into overcoming it.
Yeah,
that's it.
You got to identify where you want to be before you can even fully understand where you are. Because if you just focus on what you're going through, you can't see where you want to be. So you've got to know. It becomes too dark. That's right. You know, the big controversy right now is vaccinated versus unvaccinated. And it becomes this massive conversation. However, and this is just what I just heard on the radio 2 days ago, 35% of LA's COVID cases have been vaccinated. It's not about vaccination, not vaccination. The point is, why is our immune system not holding up? So where I want to be is healthy, not where I want to be is vaccinated. Whether you get vaccinated or not, that's not for this podcast. The question is, why do I keep getting unhealthy? What am I intaking that is causing my immune system not to keep me at a level athletically or at work or whatever? We've got to identify, okay, my goal is to be healthy. Now, what am I going to do to get there? But these controversies create this wall that keeps us from looking at what we should be talking about, which is how do we get a healthy community? How do we get our elderly where their immune systems are really strong? How do we keep our kids healthy? So we got to start from health and work backwards. And the reason I'm bringing this up is just the wall. If you turn on the radio today, all you're going to hear is about vaccinated versus not. And it just creates this wall where you can't get to the real truth, which is, how do I have my kids the healthiest as possible? How do I have my elderly as healthy as possible? And how do I have my community as healthy as possible?
And you know, there are going to be people that hear that. It doesn't matter what message you give. Haters are going to hate. And I'm sorry, but if you had a negative response to what Scott just said, you're a hater. I don't know how else to put it. Okay. And I told this story, I think, on one of the first episodes of AllRedding. Is years ago, I used to work out at Everyday Health, and it used to be Gold's Gym. And there was this guy who was blind. He had, he had no eyes. I remember he was blind, right? Like, and he was super buff, and he would ride the bus, and he would come in, and he would work out. And I would watch that. I was just blown away by this blind man. And so one day I come in, and they'd moved all the equipment around, and they'd clean the place. And I see him come in the door, and I immediately know, like, oh no. Because he's blind, so he's got a map in his mind.
Right.
That's not, if the map's no good. So I go up to him and I say, hey, they just moved all the equipment around. Would you like me to take you around? And he said, no. He said, listen, take me to the flat bench and I'll figure it out from there.
That's great.
Because if you take me around, I won't figure it out. But
That's
I need you to help me just get started. And I always think about that guy. And sure enough, fast forward 2 or 3 weeks, he had his routine, he'd figured it out. But the mentality, if there was anybody that could be like, yeah, can you walk me around?
Yep.
But that wouldn't serve him. You know what I mean? If he had that mentality,
it's a great analogy.
He'd never be in that gym. And he was in excellent physical shape, man. This guy was, so I don't care where you are in life. I don't care if you have a disease, if you have a physical ailment, if whatever it is, if you're financially, that's not who you are. Okay.
That's right.
That's where you are right now. Okay. But you can overcome anything. I also remember I was in the Marine Corps, and we had Colonel Andrew Nicholas Pratt, one of the greatest men ever was able to serve under. I remember him telling us one night we were doing an operation, and he said, never give up, never ever give up, and even in death you will achieve victory. The idea was that if you start to give up, you will get a taste for failure. It wasn't that he was like, so we're all going to die. No, he was trying to instill that idea of constantly strive to win.
Yeah.
Okay? Because if you taste failure and you get comfortable with it, It's horrible.
That's
a
right.
horrible
That's right.
thing to be like, probably going to lose it. That's how you find yourself. That's a lot of people are in a lot of bad situations because they've got a taste for failure and they're comfortable with it.
That's right.
You know? So I think about him in those, and I think about that guy in those times when I'm trying to be like, well, you don't understand, Scott. I've got problems, bud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Try not to live there.
And I have opinion that if people are listening, it's because they want change. If they're listening to this, because it's not just playing over your radio because you're just happen to have it on. And so it's when people want change, incredible results can happen.
So when people have intentions,
That's right.
the mechanism will show itself.
That's right.
Yeah. So what are some, man, we kind of got off on that. I think a lot of people are going to listen to this and be like, COVID. It's like, that wasn't the point. The point was, this is the challenge that we're facing right now as a group.
That's right.
And if you have a really strong belief, focus that belief on yourself.
Yep.
Right? And try not to. I'm amazed at how many people have an opinion, and I look at them and you can tell health has never been a concern for them.
Yeah.
That their life choices have never pivoted around their own personal health, but they've got a really strong opinion on what I should do.
Yeah.
That should be a sign to you. That should be a little red flag that if you get up and your thoughts are on how other people should serve, you kind of miss the point.
Yeah.
You're not helpful to yourself, and you're certainly not helpful to the group, regardless of what you think, regardless of how good it feels to talk down to someone, especially in some type of online forum. Focus on yourself. Great things will happen.
Yeah, and I think every person, they have this, literally every person I've ever met, there's some area in their life where they have this unusual ability of excellence. It could be in benevolence, it could be in anything. It could be in service, it could be in intellect. But if a person will just focus on what they can be excellent at, all the rest comes into alignment, because somehow people are gifted in certain areas. At least that's an area they're not having to overwork to get to. It's something that comes natural. And if you can truly achieve excellence in that area, then again, I think it affects all the other areas that you're trying to figure out, how do I break through in this one area?
And wins are the fuel for future wins.
That's right.
You got to celebrate the little things.
Creates belief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you find something, if you can find, well, where am I good? What are my, not like, but I'm not this. You got to stop that mindset, man. Because your enemy, go in the bathroom, turn the light on, look right in the mirror. That is the single greatest enemy you will ever have in your life. I remember Hickson Gracie was just on Joe Rogan. For those that know who Hickson Gracie is, he's the son of Helio Gracie. He's famed to be undefeated, over 400-0. He is widely considered the greatest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master. He's in his, I think, 60s now. He's a red belt. And he talked about the very first fight he had, and he was 19. He'd never had a professional fight, and he's going to fight this guy that had over 100 fights. And he got in there and he was going at it. And at the end of the first round, the 10 minutes, he goes to the corner and he says, "I'm done, Dad." And his dad goes, "No, you're not. You're about to win this. You're seconds away from winning this." And they dump ice on him. He goes out and he wins just the way his dad. And he said he realized in that moment that he had two enemies. One was whoever he was, his opponent. The other one was in his head. And he said, "I'm not going to fight two enemies. I'll never let fear come in again."
That's good.
And that's the beginning of, Hickson Gracie is one of those guys that even if you're not into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're not into this, he's an awesome guy to look at. Somebody who's 400-0, over 400-0. He's got incredible stories of these people coming from all over the world to challenge him. And he's not a big man. You know what I mean? He fought at like 175 and he's beating men 250 to 275. Amazing. Yeah. But you talk about a mental will, a winning mindset. I have to think, I'm a big Tom Brady fan, honestly. He's an example, of just, I got to think he's got a mindset like that, of just like, I'm going to win. I'm not going to defeat myself.
My wife, Deanna, has a statement that she makes specifically when we're around our kids, and that is that whatever you tolerate, you have an abundance of.
It's true.
And I think that when we start looking at what we're tolerating is what we have an abundance around us, you can also look at it as, when I tolerate excellence, I have excellence all around me.
Yeah.
Whatever you tolerate, you have an abundance of. I have to use that to see where am I just going, okay, I'll let that slide in my own self.
So to bring a solution, if somebody has listened today and they're like, okay, I'm curious about personal mastery.
Yeah.
And I would suggest it. I went through it. I have a host of people that we could name on here that
Yep.
went through it,
Yep.
who are incredibly successful, will tell you that it was an awesome experience. It's a tough experience. I'm not going to kid you, right? But I don't know how growth and comfort don't coexist.
Yeah.
So if you're looking, you're lazy boy and your couch pretty comfortable,
Yep.
not a lot of success in between those cushions. But if somebody was wanting to do this
Yeah.
and wanted to know more, how would they find out?
So the first thing I tell people is obviously money and time is not the issue, and they're all over the United States happening. You just go on to Clemmer.com and you can see where a personal mastery is happening. I would go to Florida right now if I had to get to one. In Redding, we happen to have one August 20th. And
Coming up.
Yeah, it's Friday, 5 p.m. to midnight. And then it's 9 to 6 on Saturday, and then 9 to 5 on Sunday. So it's like a 5-day all squeezed into 2.5 days. But it happens to be right here. If that is workable, great. If it's not, then I would literally find out where I can go to get to one.
Clemmer.com is KLEMMER.com. It's named after Brian Clemmer, who started it. He's since passed away. It's taken on by his daughter and
Crystal.
And
And
Kimberly.
CEO Kimberly Zink. Yep.
And I would highly suggest it. I would say that everybody can do it. But if you feel like you're in a funk,
Yeah.
if you spend your day upset, if you spend your day angry, if you spend your day sad, that's a horrible place. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I wouldn't wish COVID. Yeah. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. But I wouldn't wish a life of regret, sadness, anger.
Yep.
Because the truth is that we can all be happy.
Yep.
We can all, I don't care where you are, there's somebody that wishes they were in you, as bad as you think you have it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I hate to always negative, but there are places in the world right now where people are going through what we would call living hell. Living hell. There are people that are, I don't need to go down it. There's plenty of people on this planet that are going through horrific events that would love to trade. If you're watching this, would love to trade places with you. I don't care what your situation is. And you can advance your situation. You can make your situation better, or you can continue to drink that poison every day.
Yeah, and it can be someone that is going through a difficulty in family, finance, religion, whatever. It can be as simple as someone that is afraid to make the big step. We had a mortgage broker that his dream was something else in a totally different field.
I know who you're talking about.
And all of a sudden, he goes through that weekend and realizes, oh, I have what it takes for the big dream. It's the reason I had the dream.
And he's crushing it.
And he's
He's crushing it.
But he would have still been doing really great financially today in a position that he's not passionate about. And so it could be just personal growth, it could be business growth. But the beauty is you can have two people in the same room. One could be going through possibly the worst time in their life, and the other one just afraid of how big the future is. And the same tools make the same difference.
Yeah. So I would definitely, Clemmer.com, check it out. August 20th is coming up, so that's right around the corner. We'll see if we can get this episode. I hope we can get this episode edited and out.
And if not, I tell people, I said, don't wait for the next one. You do that and you're already perpetuating that everywhere in your life. People say, well, I don't, I'm gone, I'm out of town. Legitimate reason. I'm out of town, I'll wait till the next one comes. Where else are you waiting?
Yeah.
If you want extraordinary change in a small amount of time, you got to make the difference today.
And you've got to be a priority.
Yeah.
The metaphor of when you're on the airline, put your mask on first to help you out. You have to. Your health, and that's not just physical health, that's mental health, it's emotional health. That should come first. That's right. Because you're not going to be of use to other people. That's another big thing that I feel is an opportunity for me in my life for growth is serving others. I think I'm great at serving myself. I need to do a better job, and definitely my wife and children. But there's something that was a calling in me that's like, I need to serve others. Yeah. Or I shouldn't. I want. See, there you go. See, catching that word. I choose to serve others because I know that in doing that, that's a blessing to me. That's right. I know that when I go and lift somebody up, you helped him. I helped me. As much as I helped that person,
right.
I helped myself. And I want to stay in that space. So I struggle with it. Get on here, he's talking a lot of trash. Oh yeah, no doubt. It's real easy right now but it's a daily struggle of getting up in the morning. That's why that gratitude journal is so important. To start the day with, what am I grateful for? This is some awesome coffee, man. It'll start there. Okay. And so, Scott, it's been awesome having you on here. I knew it would be. If somebody has some, we didn't push your business, but you handle our family and friends commercial real estate. If somebody does have some questions about commercial real estate, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can go to ventureproperties.co. They can give us a call locally, and any way we can help, from the investment all the way down to just, a lot of times it's their kids getting their first home. We love seeing people increase in their net worth. So they can just reach out to us at Venture Properties, and we'd be happy to help them.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks.
My hands are cold and clammy, right? I need better blood circulation, but awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Until next time, get out, do your gratitude journal, and remember, you are the master of your own destiny.
That's right.